I am on jet lag time here. Droopy eyes from that 2 hour time zone difference. And we are all getting on here. We have some amazing speakers here tonight. And I'm just delaying it a little bit since I made this little time zone blip and I couldn't go in and edit it. It was saying 10 o'clock um, because I set it up in when I was in Central Time. So I apologize for that, everybody. But it is going to be a great show tonight. We have some amazing speakers, and we, of course, have our co-host Jackie. And I'm going to pull up my notes here really quick, and then we'll get started. I think we'll be good to go. So hold on here. Get my notes in front of me. It's been one of those travel days. You know how that goes, everybody. So I am going to go ahead and kick it off. It records, and we do encourage everybody to look at the emojis down at the bottom. There's a little heart with a plus, and you can raise your hand to speak. We welcome speakers tonight. We don't have college coaches on here tonight preventing us from speaking. So, we can go live and bring you up as a speaker if you have questions, or you can go to our DM or this Twitter space and ask it directly. I've got my Twitter live on my computer so I can see any questions. If you go to mine, I am Sherry Naudine. I'm one of the hosts. My co-host is Jackie, and for most of you who know, I am the owner of Collegiate Sports Advocate. We are just killing it out there. I am just so pleased with our advocates and the work that we're doing. I just came back from Mary Nutter, so we'll talk on Jackie's space tomorrow night about all the teams, but lots of activity and excitement. And tonight we have some special guests, but I want to have my co-host introduce herself first.
Absolutely. I'm Jackie Wins. I'm from New Jersey. I'm a former sport Division II athlete. There's in soccer and lacrosse, so not softball, but since my time in athletics, I've highly invested myself into all female sports and specifically softball as well. As you can see from my photo, I'm a big OU fan, but that doesn't stop me there. I do have my hands in a whole bunch of different things and clearly work with Sherry in terms of the spaces and other things on Twitter.
It's awesome. And tonight, this always comes up because we ask you as our listeners, what topics you want to talk about, what things that are on your mind. And as most of you know, I'm in the recruiting space, but I'm also been an avid fan. And had built some great relationships over the time. And that's kind of the basis of how I started my company, was just people asking me, like, how did you get your kids committed? And, how does this work? And what are the secrets and what are the tips? And I was like, wait a minute, there's just so much more to this. But one of the best secrets is it is relationships. And that is what we're bringing on tonight. We're bringing on relationships that have been built years and years in. And we wanted you guys to hear it from the parents. So I'm going to introduce my dear, dear friend Tish first. And just, Tish, I'd love to hear about what got you started in softball and how old Sydney is and where she's playing. And then we'll pass it to Kenny and Melissa. And then we'll come back and ask the questions, and we'll kind of pass the mic around by coming on and off mute as we go. So that'll give the speakers time to get up there and get the speaker part working. So Tish, would love to hear from you.
Tish Lewis, my daughter Sydney Lewis, is a freshman at the University of Maryland. We started out playing rec softball when she was probably 4 years old, and then just worked our way through everything.
And Kenny, if you're ready, would love to hear from you.
Sure. My name's Kenny Schreiner. My daughter is Claire Schreiner. She goes to Wakeland High School, and she plays for 16U Naudine 2025. And she's excited to get through the process and looking forward to the upcoming summer and see where all this takes her.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate you coming on. We're also waiting for Kenny Graff to come on, who is another one of our parents that is going to be coming on tonight. And Melissa Romero is about to come on. So, what you want to do is stay on mute in between the calls. And Jackie, any update on our other two speakers, Kenny Graff and Melissa Romero?
We're getting there.
Okay. Awesome. I appreciate that. And I know Kenny does lessons, so he was jumping on. And Tish, I don't know if you can give him a little text and tell him we're on, and would love to hear from him soon. But what we're going to do tonight is kind of roundtable it and talk about. There's Melissa. So, Melissa, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over because we're excited to hear from you tonight. And I know you have 4 kids, so I would love for you to introduce yourself, and then introduce where all 4 of your children are playing. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you, Sherry, for having me. My name is Melissa Romero. My husband and I, we have 4 children. Sierra Romero, who went to the University of Michigan and graduated there. She was a 4-time All-American. Sydney went to the University of Oklahoma, and she was a 2-time All-American and 2-time national champion under Patty Gasso. And then my son, Mikey, just got drafted by the Boston Red Sox in July. He was a first-round draft pick, pick 24. Pretty excited about that. He's currently in Florida right now for spring training. And then my youngest, Sophia, she's committed to Boise State, and she'll be leaving us in July. So we're super excited. We've been truly blessed with some amazing opportunities here for our kids, and I'm thankful to be here, and the fact that Sherry invited me to come on here.
Well, Melissa knows she's one of my favorite people, and it's, partially why we're on here tonight is some of the things that we've learned along the way. And I didn't really want it to be a recruiting tips kind of thing. I wanted it to really focus around the relationships and the things that you know now that you would do different. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Tish, but I'm looking for your authentic experience, behaviors, relationships. But what was the biggest lesson that you as a parent have learned so far to help others enjoy the softball journey?
And I tell most of the younger parents that I sit and talk with, the most important thing you can do, especially at 12U and first year 14s, is just enjoy it. I look back now, and Sydney started traveling when she was 12. And so it was pretty intense starting at that time. And we didn't really enjoy it. We were so wound up about who was watching and what we were doing that we didn't just have fun watching her play the game. So that's my biggest piece of advice, is have fun and enjoy it while you're there. Because really and truly, the energy you put out, your kids will feel it and will mirror it back to you. So if you're wound up about things, they're going to be the same way.
And so is there one thing that you can think of, like, gosh, I wish I wouldn't have behaved like that, or I wish I wouldn't have, maybe moved a team or changed a batting coach? Anything in particular that rings to mind?
We were, well, we were fairly fortunate that we were on the same teams, and we actually stayed with the same coaches throughout probably the last 6 years. I would just say, don't worry. I wish I hadn't worried so much about where she was playing and what she was doing. I wish I would have just enjoyed the opportunities that she had when she got out on that field, because I can promise you, when you get to college, your child will not typically be playing every single pitch of a game. So it's great for you and the athlete to learn it at an early age.
No, that's a big one for sure. I know you mentioned that to me the other day, that, you're glad she had those experiences coming through the process, because, it's not such a shock when it does happen when you get there. So that's great. So, Melissa, we'll turn it over to you.
For me, of course, having Sierra and Sydney playing so close together, they started playing when they were 6 and 8. With Dave Mercado before he built his athletics Mercado organization. It was the Trailblazers. And so, he was a travel team and we were going places and, just having the time of our life. And at that time, being young and naive parent, I assumed, okay, well, if my kid's not playing, this is just ridiculous. Why do I come out here and sit here for this? When we're spending all this money, I didn't realize that at that time that I needed to just sit back, allow the kids to play when they were going to play, and let the coach. And I think that if parents can just understand the bigger picture here, and the fact that your kid is not always going to play, and there is going to be moments where they're not going to, maybe, like I said, be in a game and you're just going to have to sit there and, watch. But guess what? This is not an individual sport. If you want to play an individual sport, then you go play tennis or you go play golf. This is a team sport, and there's 9 players on the team, and all of them deserve a chance to shine. So if I could just say, to one thing is to just be able to sit back, enjoy the journey. Don't get caught up in all the talk, and just enjoy your kids, because in the blink of an eye, it's over and done with. And, then the woulda, shoulda, couldas come in, and, what could I have done differently? Like what we're discussing tonight. So, that's kind of, I think, where I'm at with, my stance on that.
Awesome. No, that's great. And I know Jackie and I mentioned it because we were texting. She was at a Georgia game this weekend, and then I was at Mary Nutter, and just hearing the best advice I could give here is just hearing the parents talking in the stands and talking about the coaches or other families, or I can't believe they just replaced her at the bat, how's she going to handle that? And the other parent sitting right there. I mean, I just don't I wish people would realize that there's a lot of eyes and ears that are listening and watching. And I personally experienced that this weekend at the Mary Nutter. Just, parents currently in it, not recognizing that maybe they need to, just sit back and enjoy it. I'm like, you're in your 5th year. Why wouldn't you just be enjoying this moment that you're here and that it's almost over? So, Jackie, anything you want to add here?
Yeah, I mean, just even from like my coaching days, you don't see necessarily when you're in the environment and reacting and things like that, you don't see your impact on the student athlete right away. It's going to be after the game, after you made that reaction, you go, "Oh, should I have done that?" So try not to be reactionary. I know it's hard. There's a lot invested, whether that be money, time. I totally understand that. But there is that athlete at the end of the day, who want support rather than critique, and and that means not only to the athlete but to the coach, right? They need to be in a positive headspace, and they want to love the game, right? It's going to be a long journey for them.
That's great. And now I'm going to ask you to give me a story or give me a situation. Was there one thing you look back on now, Tish, where you wish, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that? And if you could go back and fix it, what would it look like today?
The one thing I probably wish I could change was we were with a team that we thought was going to be a good fit. And one of the reasons we thought it was going to be a good fit was because there were a lot of the girls that she was going to be playing in high school with. And that's not a great way to pick a team, number one. And number two, I let things build up so much with some animosity with the coach, and it all came out in a tournament one night at a game. Was not my finest hour. Not going to lie about that. I wish that I had been able to separate myself from what was going on with my child on the field and realized it was not a personal attack. It wasn't anything like that. It was a coach doing what he felt was best for his team at the time. So being able to step back and kind of holistically view what's going on, I think is one of the most important things you can do.
Kind of that 24-hour or 48-hour
Yes.
rule, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Melissa, we'd love to hear, because we also do get a baseball audience too, for both Mikey and then all three of your daughters. If you have some situations there, we'd love to hear your stories.
Yeah. So there I can recall one incident vividly when Sierra played under the guidance of Mark Campbell. I remember I was there alone. My husband was home that day, and I had got up to, I don't even know, I might have gone to the snack bar, probably like my 15th trip to the snack bar or something. And I came back and sat down, and I looked at at the time, Sierra was supposed to be playing second base. And I was like, wait, where is she? And I called my husband, which I first should not have done that. And I was like, hey, Mark pulled Sierra out of the game. I have no idea why. And he was like, no, she needs to be playing. And I was like, okay, well, what do you want me to do? And he's like, you need to go up to the dugout and tell Mark to put her in or we're leaving. And I was like, wait, you want me to walk up to Mark Campbell and tell Mark Campbell to pull or put Sierra back in or we're leaving? And he goes, yeah, you need to. And I was like, okay. So I walked up to the dugout and Sierra was sitting there and she was mortified. I walked up and I was like, Mark, really? Because we had that relationship. And first of all, I should have never called him by Mark. I should have said Coach Campbell. I'm like, seriously? I said, you pulled Sierra out of the game for what? And he was like, Melissa, let me coach. Go sit down. I said, Sierra, get your stuff and let's go. And Sierra turned to me and she said, Mom, if it doesn't bother me, it shouldn't bother you. She's all, walk away. And I was like, okay. So I walked back up, like dragging, my head between my legs. And I walked back up and I was so embarrassed. And I called my husband and he was like, that's Melissa's ridiculous. He was still upset. So after the game, Mark came up to me and he was like, Melissa, seriously, why would you do that? And I said, I don't know. Like, she should be playing. Why did you put somebody else in over Sierra? And he goes, well, first of all, I don't have to explain to you what I'm doing with other kids. He goes, but if you must know, Utah was here to see another second baseman. And therefore, I put her in so that Utah could watch her. And I was like, oh. And so after that, and after the game, when Sierra literally put me in my place, I'll never forget it. She was like, Mom, if you ever do that again, I don't ever want you coming to one of my games again. And she goes, you embarrassed me in front of my coach, in front of my teammates. She goes, please do not ever do that again. And so I learned, and of course our kids teach us, right, as well. I'm 51 years old and I'm still learning as I go. I think the moment you stop listening to your kids or stop learning from just anyone, it could be a child, or it could be an adult, is where I think that you start to have a problem. So, I mean, I don't know all there is to know. I don't have a crystal ball or a book in front of me. I've just tried to do my best over the years. So that's one thing that I very, very much regret doing. And of course, never did anything like that again.
That's a great story, and on all points, right? Mark Campbell, may rest in peace. Coming back and explaining and letting you know what it is, and then of course, your husband having a remote conversation and not seeing the whole picture. But wow, how old was Sierra? That is a very mature thing.
Sierra was only 13 years old.
That's
She had just
crazy.
turned 13. So she was very mature. And, I knew how upset she was with me. I don't even think like we spoke on the car ride home. And I know she definitely didn't talk to me that night. So it was definitely a teachable moment, for myself. And, I knew I had a lot of work that I needed to do because I didn't understand. And of course now, looking back, I understand. I get it. I get it.
Yeah. Now, anything with Sydney or Sophia or Mikey that might have been different?
Um, you know, I think that with Sierra and Cindy, when it came to the long car rides, the long car ride home, where either it usually was my husband who was laying into them, and if we took separate cars, the kids always wanted to ride with me because they didn't want to hear it. I mean, there were a few times where I kind of inserted myself and was like, look, you looked lazy today. Did you come out here to play, or was you going out the night before a little too much? And I think really what it comes down to, when at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, they get it from their coaches. They don't need to hear it from us. They already know what they're doing wrong. They know what they need to work on. And I think that when you can draw that line as a parent and be able to have a conversation in the car about, maybe what their plans are for, the week ahead, instead of, grilling them in the car about, a bad game that they had when they already know they had a bad game. I wish I would have had less of those conversations and more of, more positive conversations. I would say more so with my husband doing that. But again, as time went on, we started to learn and we started to realize. So I think Sierra got the brunt end. We learned a little bit more with Sydney on what not to do. And then with my son, it was a whole different ball game, where he obviously had all his trainers and stuff. And yes, we would tell him, hey, you need to be out there hitting. But then it was almost like second nature. He would just do it, where Sophia, I've just learned to let her do her thing. If she wants it, she wants it. If she doesn't, she doesn't. I can't force it. So, I think that's where I'm at in my life. I just have to kind of let the kids be who they're going to be. And, if they really want it bad enough, then they'll work hard.
I love hearing that because I've always admired your kids' individual work ethic, and yet they're each different, right? And for those of you who are just joining, I did coach Sierra in 10 and under, and Sydney was on the field. And I see my husband listening too. And Sydney used to just come to practice because I want to say she was 7, and he goes, "Put the right fielder in the game. Put her on the roster." I go, "Dude, she's 7. She's toothless." And he goes, "She's the best kid here." So Melissa, I don't know if you ever remember Ed saying that, but but what I admired about you guys is you were like, she wasn't ready for that experience. She wasn't ready for, the intensity. I mean, we were a top ranked team. So do you remember that situation?
I do. And, just to kind of, piggyback off of that with the kids, with each one of them, like, they're all so different. I mean, they all, went to the respective schools that they went to because they wanted to go there and not because I told them to, and it was like, I had to, trying to navigate that with 4 kids and, making sure they're kind of just, what is the word I'm looking for? That they're supporting each other in their decisions and, not saying anything bad about the schools that each one of them wanted to go to. And also and comparing them, I don't compare the kids. I let them be who they're going to be. And I think that's something that's made them all very successful. I don't do it. I won't, especially when I hear people saying, oh, well, how does Sophia deal with this now? It's been challenging, and I don't want to go off topic, but it's been challenging. So if there's a question there, I can eventually talk about that. But we've learned to
Yeah, I was going
navigate
to
that.
switch as well. Excellent. I was going to switch and ask Tish about social media because I think all of you guys have started before social media was a big deal. And Tish,
Right.
what has it done good for you? What has it not been good for? And advice to the families about social media. And then Melissa, I'll just let you finish that one.
Okay.
I would say the best advice I can give anyone is to wait as long as you possibly can to give it to your kids, because once you open that box, there's no putting it back in there. The good of it is, the good of it is being able to get information out in a very quick way for people to be able to see it. So if it's Sherry sending out highlight videos or whatever for Sydney, that was great. I would say the negative of it is it's twofold. Number one, these kids are using the likes and the comments and everything else to judge their self-worth, which I think is so detrimental to them. And the second part of it is you are putting out a lot of content about about you. You're promoting yourself, and it really can cause a lot of backlash from people you don't know, as well as from your teammates and just other people that you have run across in this very small world. So I mean, it's great to be able to get the information out there, but it's also a detriment because it's going to cause dissension among people.
Melissa, how about your thoughts on that?
Social media is a double-edged sword. I mean, you do it in one breath because you want to share, pictures or, videos and of your friends or your family or, your great day at the plate. And then you've got on the other end, maybe, you're putting up something else that you shouldn't be. And then the comments start coming, unless you turn those comments off. And then it can be hurtful because, people hide behind a computer screen and, the bullying can start. And, things like that. And, some of that occurred with Sophia, towards I should say when she really got heavy into using social media, it was like, are you ever going to be as good as your sisters, And I put a stop to that like right away. I had to sit Sophia down and just tell her, look, you're Sophia. You stay in your lane, and you're not a shortstop, you're not a third baseman, you're not a second baseman, you're an outfielder. You play your game and don't worry about what anybody else says. So, she asked me, Mom, how do I respond to those things? And I just told her, you tell them I'm Sophia Romero. I play outfield, and I'm secure with who I am. I'm not trying to be like anybody else but myself, So, again, like she's just to piggyback off what Tish said, the social media aspect. I mean, back in the day with Sierra and Sydney, I mean, it wasn't as prevalent as it is now, especially with all the NLI stuff. The more you post, the more, you tag certain companies, the more maybe sponsorships you'll get. I mean, I think that if parents can monitor it as best as we can, then it can be a good thing. And if it starts to, impede on one's mental health, then you step away from it. It's really easy to deactivate the accounts as well. So, I mean, it all has to come, based off of what you do in your home. So, and what you allow.
Yeah, amazing that you have to go to that extent to keep what I call the mean people away or the haters. And I see it more with the parents and the adults. And I'm like, someday you're gonna say, "Hey, I grew up playing with that kid, so you know, you might not want to hate on the fact she got upset when she missed a ball at shortstop. And I'm talking about a kid at Oklahoma that grew up around here that, people kind of gunned for her really early. And it was hurtful and mean. And I got to watch her play this weekend, and I put up, she should be MVP of the league starting right now. Just Jada Coleman MVP, because she was spectacular this
Yeah.
weekend, and it was great to see. And yet, people picking on her when she was 9. It was just ridiculous, because just like your kids, you could see at 9 she was elite and, above the rest. But then navigating individually for each one of them is amazing, Melissa. And wow, what a job you've done. And then Tish, I want to swing back to you here, but I want to remind everybody to, go friend us on our Twitters here and interact with us. And you can see some of our loyal listeners are giving some emojis and showing some love. But Tish, I want to go, because I know you have a story about the rankings. What do the rankings mean, and how
Oh,
was it positive and negative for your family?
I personally, I think the rankings are completely irrelevant. And this is why I will say this. My daughter was a pitcher up until maybe first year 16s, last year 14s. And then she quit pitching. She didn't pitch in high school. She didn't pitch in travel. She didn't pitch at all. Her senior year, she was still ranked, I want to say, number 120 in the class of 2022 pitchers. And that right there tells you that there's not a lot of homework that goes into it. And you can't put stock into it. And I think it kind of goes along with the social media and getting the likes and wanting to see, get that validation. That's what it does to these kids. And it's so heartbreaking. I lived it. The rankings would come out, and we would look to see if maybe she was going to show up on them. And I want to say before her senior year, she was ranked in the 300s. Well, we told her those rankings do not define you. She's now at the University of Maryland. That's not going to tell you where you're going to end up, especially when you're in 7th grade. Because when Sydney was in 7th grade, she was still pitching. She was still growing. I mean, we were actually in the tail end of still being recruited in middle school. It changed when she was an 8th grader. So we were still having to deal with the pressure of that, and seeing all of these other girls get committed who, you ask yourself, I don't think she's that much better than me. So what am I doing wrong? But I understand it's a necessary evil for some of the publications, but I do think they should hold off on ranking these kids. And if you're going to have a top 100, make it a top 100 and not a top 300, because how can you have 5 kids tied for number 89?
Melissa, what are your thoughts?
I'm 100% on board with the ranking. I think it's bogus. I really do. I couldn't even tell you, this is how much I even think about it or looked at it. When Sierra and Sydney were playing, I couldn't even tell you right now, and this is the honest truth. I never went on that stuff to look at it. I didn't look at Hay Bucket. I would get people texting me going, did you see the comments on Hay Bucket, or did you see the rankings that are out? I'm like, I don't look at it because, and I know Sierra and Sydney did at times, and I would tell them, why do you look at it? Why do you care? Because it doesn't matter. Be where your feet are now. Like, do what you need to do to, get through your high school years. And then when you get to college, it's all about performing. I mean, you got to get there, and if you're doing well, great. It doesn't matter where you're ranked. You're not going to, yeah, maybe ESPN talks about it when you you go to the College World Series and someone says, oh, well, this is the number 1 ranked player in the nation, now playing for OU. Okay, great. You get your 5 seconds of fame on there, but it doesn't matter. And to kind of, and what I also this is kind of going to lead me into going into Mikey, towards the end, when draft day came, he wasn't even on the draft board, the mock draft board top 100. So we were like, as parents, yes, we were still like, oh boy, is he gonna even be drafted? We were sitting here having a draft party because we knew it was like there was a likelihood that he would be drafted. We just didn't even know. We didn't find out until 20 minutes before they picked Mikey in the first round, and he was picked number 24 by the Boston Red Sox. We had no clue. We got a call from his agent, and they told us at that time. It doesn't matter what the rankings say or what Perfect Game All-American says, or what whoever, Baseball America, it just doesn't matter. Everyone can say what they want to say, but what it comes down to is all those people in the rooms that are sitting there talking amongst themselves on who wants your kid or not. Even Sophia, and this is where it broke my heart, because there would be times where Sophia would say, dang, Mom, I know I did so good. I played so well. I think we played in Oklahoma, and she made the all tournament team. I think she was like 14 for 16 at bats that tournament. She just had a phenomenal weekend. And she was like, Mom, I think I should be ranked. And I was like, Sophia, who cares? Like, if you are, or if you're not, what does that change? It doesn't change anything. You still have to go out and perform. So, I think that if we can just get away from, that aspect of it, and just have the kids focus on their game and what they bring to the table, because each child brings something different to the table, and they all have strengths and weaknesses, and it's up to us and up to them to help them pull out those strengths, and also help them through their weaknesses as well.
Fan-
Sorry if I was
oh no, that's
long-winded.
fantastic. And I want to encourage the audience again that my DMs are open on Twitter. You can respond here on the space if you have a question. If we haven't tackled a particular topic that you're looking for, and our other speaker, Kenny, is with us, and it says listeners. So I sent it to you, Kenny Graff, to accept to be a speaker, and would love for you to join. And again, if you've got some other questions that you want us to cover here tonight, we'd love to do that. This is your space, and it's questions that you're asking parents that have been through it, and not how to get recruited, but how to handle some of the things that go on. And I know the rankings was a big deal going on. And then, I saw a post today. Somebody had said, you're going to always be my friend no matter what team you're on. And I think that's important too, when you see the girls aren't are always on the same team forever. So Kenny, I see you here. Will you introduce yourself, introduce who your daughter is, and then we might ask you a couple quick rapid questions just to get everybody caught up.
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my name's Kenny Graff. My daughter is Macy Graff. She is currently a freshman on the Mississippi State softball team. I guess, I don't know, what else would you like to know about her?
Well, a couple things we've gone through is, are there, in looking back in your journey with Macy, were there mistakes you felt you made as a parent that you wish you could go back and change?
100%. I was just actually got through giving some hit lessons to some kids earlier, and I was telling a dad that the biggest mistake I made as a parent was I kept a hold of that. I wouldn't say daddy ball, because I didn't ever did a daddy ball with my child, but I did coach her probably a year or two too long. I wanted, I'd never trusted anybody in coaching my kid because I didn't feel like they were good coaches out there. And then when I finally let loose of her to be coached by others, then I feel like they took her to another level, because she wasn't playing for daddy anymore. She was playing for someone else. And that other person, I felt like she wanted to impress, or they were able to bring out more than I ever could have. I held my kid back, and so that's what I would tell to most listeners out there, is that you know you gotta understand when it's time to say when it's time to let your kid go and be coached by someone else. And, when kids do that and parents actually let go and let the coaches actually coach their kid instead of micromanaging, what the coach says or does, that's when your kid's going to honestly grow as a player. And as a parent, you can, basically shut up and sit back and watch.
That's great. Is there any particular situation or storyline that you had growing up that you go, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that as a parent, or one maybe that Macy made along the way?
Um, I would say the biggest mistake, like I said, was coaching too long. I mean, my kid actually, I would say, walked away from softball at 12. At 12U, she walked away from the sport, and it's because I never let her. I never was her dad. I was always her coach, and I was always, on her. So there's never a time for her just to be a child around me. She was always a softball player, and I was always a coach to her. So that was probably the biggest mistake that I made. Like I said, was I held on way too long, thinking that I could do it all myself, and that's, I would say, the biggest issue with sports is that parents seem to think that they can do it all themselves, and it really can't. They can do a lot of things, but they can't do all things. And that's when, when that time, and it's different for every kid, because I've coached a lot of kids in my life. It's different for every kid and every player. So that was probably the biggest um, mistake, one of the biggest mistakes I did. And then as a parent, um, you know, we didn't jump teams probably hardly at all. We really stayed with the same group of kids for the most part her entire softball career. Um, so that's one thing we are blessed with, that we were surrounded by talent for a long period of time. And I would tell all people out there is, don't be afraid of big rosters. If you're afraid of big rosters, means you're afraid your kid's not good enough to be on that team. Um, Big rosters will make you a better ball player because it pushes each other. You push each other. You don't have a guaranteed starting spot. Um, One of Macy's coaches later in life told her, "Be great wherever I put you," and that has probably resonated in her. Once she got on his team, because when she got on his team, she was a middle infielder. And that's all she ever played, was middle infield. Well, when she got over to his team, there was already established middle infielders, and her best way to get in the starting lineup immediately was to play outfield. And the very first tournament, we joined this team, he throws her out in left field, and she hasn't played outfield in forever. And she makes a diving catch, and then he looks at me, "Be great wherever I put you." And that's probably been the best thing that's ever happened to my kid, was she was able to play anywhere and everywhere, and she's what I would consider a true utility. So right now for Mississippi State, she plays second and third, and they'll switch her in the middle of a game. So, just be happy, wherever the coach puts you, and believe that he knows what he's doing, or she knows what they're doing.
That's great advice, and I know that coach, by the way.
Oh, do you? Well, he's a pretty good coach. I mean, he's a pretty dang good coach.
Funny guy. But I've got a couple questions from the space here, and one of them is any of you, and how you can do it. You can stay on mute, and then there's a little heart and a plus down there that you can raise your hand if you want to answer it. But the question is do you have advice about, or looking back on specifically? I'm looking at where they went. I lost it. But Jackie, can you read the two that are on there?
Sure. All right. So the first question is, what would be the best advice for choosing a college program? What are the priorities in the decision?
I can.
This I was gonna say, this is Tish. What I will say is, the best thing you can do when choosing a college program is one that checks all the boxes. And it's not just about softball. It's about what they want to do in life. It's about where they want to go. If you ask Sydney, when she was 14, where she wanted to go to college, she said it had to be within 5 hours of wherever I lived, because she didn't want to be far. She wanted me to be able to drive to her whenever I wanted to. Now she's not. She's about 10 hours from me, so obviously things changed. But you really have to go where you feel comfortable, and we have to take off the rose-colored glasses and look at what else that softball team is about, and decide if your kid's going to be able to play. Because if they go to these schools and they only went for softball, and maybe for some reason there's a senior in front of them that they're wanting to train your child, well, if they can't handle sitting on the bench, then college will be probably ruined for them. So really looking at everything. Don't just look at the softball team and say, are they Power 5? Are they D1? Are they winning? Are they, you've got to look at all of it before you make that decision. The biggest thing for us was the coaches wanted my child. I mean, and they made it very well known that they wanted her.
That's great. Melissa, you've got four examples here. What are some of your best decisions?
So, I'll start with Sierra. She, we would just sit down and collectively have conversations as a family, and we would ask her, where do you want to go to school? And she had her top 5 schools, but she always went back to Michigan, and it was like, Mom, this is where I want to be. And when she visited out there, she was like, everything feels right, Mom. And like, which what Tish was saying about checking all the boxes. Sometimes I don't know if kids have it all figured out when it comes to wanting to check all the boxes. And although we did sit down and put a list together and say, hey, the pros and the cons, Sierra was up for the challenge. She knew she was going to be leaving Southern California. She knew she was going to be going to cold weather. She knew that, she wanted to play for Coach Hutch. She knew she wanted to be at Michigan. She didn't even know what she wanted to study yet. So sometimes kids have it figured out to where they want to go to a certain school because they want to study or do a certain, academic program, for their degree. But that wasn't the case for Sierra, so she, picked Michigan, loved it, thrived there. And the one thing that I did tell my kids, though, that when they verbaled to their respective schools, I told them, look, once you give a coach your verbal commitment, that is your word. Do not go back on your word. Now, I understand things change. Maybe a coach leaves or something like that. But nowadays with this whole portal stuff, that's a whole nother issue for me. I just told them, look, you don't jump ship when things get hard. You stay and you grind it out. And that's, I mean, pretty much in life, right? We go to a job, we go to a job every day and hopefully we love it. But if there's not something waiting in the works, we can't just say, okay, I quit. I'm going to go somewhere else, or I'm going to stay home for 6 months till I find something else. That's not how it works. So that's one thing that I've always prided myself and my family on is, you go to a school, then you stay there. And Sierra never wavered. In those 4 years that she was there, she thrived. She loved it. It's funny because I always tell her, I wish you would have gone back and got your master's. And she's like, Mom, it was so hard. That school academically was so hard. And she's like, I don't want to. So now Sydney going to Oklahoma, she knew she wanted to go to Oklahoma. She knew she wanted to play for Patty Gasso. Again, she was undecided with her degree. She knew that she was hoping to get that guidance because as time went on, she thought for herself, I am going to one day coach. Then the wheels started turning. And so she started taking all the classes she needed, to maneuver her way into that coaching, coaching lane she wanted to be in. And, she I mean, she worked under Patty after she graduated from there. Patty paid for 2 more years of school for her to get her master's, and now she's a coach at Duke. So, you know, she knew what she wanted to do. And so, but it took some time. Um, and then you have my son. He again, this is saying once you commit to a school, right? He had committed to the University of Arizona to play baseball. And when Jay Johnson left Arizona and went to LSU, the first person he called besides the press and saying he was, moving over to LSU was Mikey. And he said, Mikey, I want you to come with me to LSU. And I remember Mikey after his game, he came up to me, when he was on the phone with Jay Johnson, and he was like, Mom, he wants me to leave. And I was like, Mikey, I'm all, you committed. And he's like, but Mom, I wanted to play for Jay Johnson. That's why I went to Arizona. And I was, so that was hard for me, but he did end up going or wanting to, he committed to LSU, but then of course the draft talked him out of going to school. But it is in his contract that if, things don't work out, he can go back to LSU. So, I'm sorry, not to LSU, go to school or get his degree. So Sophia, she was my late bloomer, getting into the whole college or recruitment, because she really didn't even know if she wanted to play softball. So she was in gymnastics, she was, in dance, she was always in something, because I told her, you're not going to just sit at home. You need to figure it out. Whatever it is, I'm on board. I'm going to support you. And, as time was ticking and she was like, Mom, I love softball. This is what I want to do. The 2023 class with COVID, it was a hard year. A lot of those kids, there was no money available. And so she was actively being recruited by Campbell, and towards the end of her recruitment, it was Washington. And then Justin from Boise was just, really like heavy, on her, recruiting her, and he offered her a scholarship. So, you know, and it was for her, it was her dream school. It's where she wanted to go. So I'm just happy and I'm thankful that I've been able to help the kids navigate each of their respective college journeys that they've, decided on where they wanted to go. I think the one thing that I'll leave you with is that, yes, we all want to have a hand in our kids. When we sit down and have our table dinner talks and, oh, we think you should go here. We think you should do this. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it should be your kids' decision, because they're going there. We're not going there for the next 4 years. And I would never want my kid to, be upset with me or say I should have done this. I want them to make that decision, because it should be their decision when it's all said and done. Yeah, we can be there to help them navigate it, and, support them along the way.
Excellent. And Kenny, what about you and Macy?
Okay, I'm back. Okay, I was listening. So the thing with Macy and my son, our family, I would say, is um, when September first came and she got all the calls and whatnot. My wife and I really stayed out of the way. We let her make the decision 100% on her own. We did not. We talked about it as a family, like going with some pros and cons, but in regards to that, we stayed out of the way. Up to the day she decided to commit, we didn't even know where she was going. I mean, so uh, so that was a weird situation for our family, but we felt like it was her. She's the athlete. She's the one going there. She's the one that's going to have to do the grind. She's the one that this is her future, not mine or my wife's. So, we left it up to her, but each child, each athlete is different, mentally. But, our kid, we felt like she knew what the reasons for choosing the school that she chose, why she wanted to go there. Was she going there to chase a ring, or was she going there to be a program changer or to party? What was her reason? And all in all, she said it's her choice, her future. And And that's kind of how we felt. So we stayed out of the way. Um, she, basically texted me just a second ago. She goes, "Go where you're wanted." Um, her coaches, uh, growing up, always told her, "Go where you're wanted. Don't go where you want to go necessarily, because if you're not wanted there, you may end up going there, but you don't fit their program. So they didn't even want you to be there to begin with, but they took but you don't fit. You don't fit what their needs are. Um, so if you go where you're wanted, you're more than likely going to be part of their plan." Um, let's see. Well, she said to go where you would enjoy going to school if softball wasn't an option. And her big thing is, keep a great relationship with the coaches that recruited you, just because you never know what goes on in life. But go to the school that you wanted to go to, is what she said. um, Another thing that Macy wants everyone to listen to is, to be the best, you have to outwork the rest. And that's in everything that she does. She wants to outwork the rest. And so that's advice I'd give to any parent out there, is, if you think your kid is a college athlete or wants to be a college athlete, are they doing what it takes to outwork the competition? So,
That's fantastic.
um,
Kenny, I'm going to make a quick round robin here for the last 5 minutes. And Tish, I'll
yes, ma'am.
start with you. Just this last question is, any quick tips of managing academics and athletics? And I know it was a big, huge workload freshman year for Sid.
Um, I would say go in with your eyes. Here was our philosophy going into her freshman year. I told her she needed to take 15 hours this first semester because we needed to figure out what she was going to be able to manage and handle. It was up and down, but I cannot recommend enough that you take advantage of every single tool that the athletic department and your academic advisors give you, because they want you to be successful probably even more than I want her to be successful academically.
Melissa, how about you?
Yeah, I think that when kids get to college, obviously it's overwhelming their freshman year, but I think that they have all the tools that they need to be successful. I mean, there's study hall, you have counselors that review, or tutors that review, your papers. There's, I think I just said mandatory study hall. There's a plan that your counselor will come up with. I just don't ever recall a time where, I was getting a phone call. I really don't, where, the kids were ever struggling, because they had such a regimen, that, and a schedule that they had to follow, that they just didn't have time, to fail, or to go down the wrong road, I guess you would say. So I just think that the best advice I can give is, once kids get to their freshman year, I just say that, use everything possible that's there at their disposal, and they'll be successful. They won't, the coaches won't allow them to fail, I think that if they put in the work, it will show, and as time goes by, it gets easier once you have a schedule down.
And Kenny, what do you think?
Can y'all still hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? Okay. Um, the main thing is Macy went into college with a different mindset than a lot of kids. She says it's hard to fail. She just told me, she just texted me, it's hard to fail. She went in with the mindset, because one of the select coaches that was coaching one of the top teams in the country asked her, "Are you ready to go play, go to Mississippi State?" She goes, "I'm ready to go to work. They're paying me to go to work." And that means in the classroom and on the field. So that's the approach that she took, is she's there to work. They're paying her to get an education and to play softball. And so she's there, taking it like it's a job and taking it seriously. She says they do it. She just texted me saying they do everything for you to help you pass. Tutors, it's a job. They're there to help you succeed. And if you're there to work, then you will succeed.
Excellent. And Jackie, our co-host, would you like to bring us to the finish line here? Any wrap-up thoughts?
Totally. So I think, as a student athlete, when you're looking at schools and you're looking at academics, it is important that you're able to achieve those academics, right? That you're not going too over your head, right? Like if you're not an Ivy League kid and you may know that, right? And then you get there, there is an expectation there, right? And even some, let's say, Michigan or so on, there's going to be supports for you, but you also have to know where you're going to be happy, right? And so that's important to balance, is really knowing your skill set, knowing how much you'll need and how much support you'll need, because not only will you pick a school with that, but you also want to make sure they have the supports if maybe that is a reach school for you. And so depending on the division, depending on it all, they may or may not have that. So it's important to think of the whole picture, but I love the fact, go where you're wanted. And I also think that that reaches between divisions too, right? If you're wanted somewhere, and necessarily all you've been doing is pushing for Division 1 and you're not getting that, right? Maybe there's a different division for you, where you're really wanted and may have the best supports and what you're looking for. So don't take things off the table, and don't stress yourself out by the process. I know that sounds easier said than done, but keep yourself open and honest.
That's great. Well, man, what a space here tonight. And I just want to thank our speakers again. They're just fabulous people that have amazing student athletes that are out there, and we'll be watching them all. And thanks to my co-host again tonight. Next week, I haven't decided on the topic yet. It's either going to be pitching or hitting, and we'll bring in clinicians and technical type people to talk about the effects of that in the recruiting process. Everything we do on this space is always about recruiting. So we just welcome all of your input and involvement, and we thank you for attending each week. And please share it. Let people know we're out here doing it. It's been a great space. We're doing great things with it and want to keep reaching more people. So have a great week, everybody, and thank you, speakers.